This video is really not about me. My friend and content creator who you maybe know, Breakfast Tacos, reached out to me and said, hey, I want to talk about philosophy on your channel and discuss the problems with tag arguments, or in other words, presuppositional apologetics, and why it's a complete joke and falls apart philosophically. So he is going to take over and give you sort of a crash course on all these important philosophical terms, epistemology, ontology, metaphysics, what all of this stuff is as a baseline, and then he goes into the critique of why presuppositionalism is philosophically juvenile, bankrupt, and stupid. Tacos has his own style. It's really charming, so throughout the video, you're going to see his AI-generated art of him putting me through a philosophical boot camp. It's pretty funny. Although it doesn't really look like me that much. It made me look like Hassan Piker. So I thought that was really funny. But I appreciate him wanting to do this. So thank you, Tacos. And, everybody else, there's nothing wrong with having some of this background knowledge, prerequisite knowledge in order to help kind of deal with these things. So enjoy.
Hey guys, it's Taco here. I run the Breakfast Tacos YouTube. I'm the atheist presuppositional apologist, and you can find me at youtube.com/@realbreakfasttacos. I recently watched a debate of my friend Planet Peterson conversing with a Christian presuppositionalist, and I figured that not just him, but all of you could benefit from a philosophy boot camp. Now, if you have any questions about the terms, feel free to reach out to me or go to Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. It's just plato.stanford.edu. There's also a number of other useful sites online that can help you work through this philosophy stuff, but philosophy is a pretty broad field, right? So I did my best to define these in an easy to understand fashion for you, but like I said, if you have questions, don't be afraid to reach out or look online. If you enjoy the video, please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And let's get into this. So I'm sure the first question all of you have is, what is philosophy? Well, that's a great question. So philosophy is the systematic study of the most fundamental questions regarding existence, knowledge, morality, reason, and reality. Its purpose is to employ critical thinking, logical analysis, and empirical evidence in pursuit of the truth. The scope of philosophy is quite broad. It examines topics ranging from abstract ideas to practical issues, challenging assumptions in diverse fields. Today, we will explore the foundational areas that help us to understand our world. Philosophy is divided into several major branches, each addressing a different set of questions. Metaphysics examines the nature of reality and the principles that govern existence. Epistemology investigates the nature, sources, and limits of knowledge. Ethics explores moral values and principles, considering what is right and wrong. Logic analyzes the rules of valid reasoning and the structure of arguments. These branches collectively provide the tools to think rigorously about both abstract and practical issues. Today, we are going to be focusing primarily on two of these branches, metaphysics and epistemology. So metaphysics is the branch that helps us to explore the fundamental nature of reality. It asks questions like, what is the universe made of? And what is the underlying structure of all that exists? Epistemology is the branch that's concerned with knowledge. Specifically, how do we acquire knowledge? How do we justify our beliefs? And what separates true knowledge from mere opinion? Key questions that we'll examine include, what is reality? How do we know what we know? And what makes belief justified? The core idea here is that explanation should be based on empirical evidence and logical reasoning. In addition, we'll cover abstract concepts, which are ideas or general properties used to describe qualities that are not tied to specific physical objects. like the number 2, for example. We will also go over truth, which is generally understood as something along the lines of the relationship between our propositions and the observable world, or how it coheres within the system, right? So if I make this statement, the dog is eating dog food, and the dog's actually eating dog food, the statement is true. If I say that 2 plus 2 equals 4, based on the rules of mathematics, that will be true, because 2 plus 2 equals 4. Make sense? So metaphysics, in general, is one of the most confusing areas in philosophy for almost everybody that I encounter. It looks very confusing, but once you understand what the general idea of metaphysics is, it'll all start to make sense for you. Metaphysics is the study of reality beyond what we immediately observe. It uses theoretical frameworks to extrapolate and interpret empirical data. This field is inherently speculative because it attempts to construct models of the universe that may go beyond current scientific confirmation. However, its conclusions are not fixed. They are provisional and open to revision as new evidence emerges. Essentially, metaphysics strives to build the most coherent and comprehensive picture of the universe using natural evidence. In short, metaphysics is simply speculation about the fundamental nature of natural reality that goes beyond what scientific investigation can currently confirm. Now, ontology is a core subfield of metaphysics that asks the question, what is there? Or what is being? It focuses on the nature of being and existence. In other words, ontology provides us the vocabulary to discuss what exists in the world, whether it be physical objects like trees and stars, or abstract concepts such as numbers and moral values. It helps distinguish between different kinds of entities and sets the stage for more detailed discussions about the nature of reality. Let's dig into ontology more in detail. So here's a few perspectives on abstract objects. So realism holds that certain abstract objects exist independently of human thought. So for example, some Platonists argue that mathematical entities, such as the number 2, exist in an abstract realm, a Platonic realm. Nominalism asserts that abstract concepts are merely names or labels we assign to observed patterns. So, for example, the number 2 is seen as a useful label for a specific quantity rather than an independently existing object. Conceptualism claims that abstract ideas exist, but only as constructs of the human mind. An example of this would be the concept of justice being understood as a mental construct developed to guide human behavior. A common topic brought up in discussions with theists is going to be the distinction between contingent beings and necessary beings. So a necessary being would be an entity that exists by its own nature and cannot fail to exist. An example of this would be the universal quantum field, which is the necessary being of our universe. It cannot fail to exist, so it has to exist in all possible worlds. It exists by its own nature, and it provides a complete and sufficient explanation of the universe. On the other hand, contingent beings are entities whose existence depends on specific conditions. So an example of that would be, say, humans or stars or anything else that exists within this current representation of the universe. We will also explore identity, which is simply what it means for something to remain the same over time. This deeper analysis of ontology should help provide you with a foundation for understanding the nature of existence. Cosmology is a branch of metaphysics that studies the universe as a whole. It asks key questions like, did the universe have a beginning, or is it eternal? Is the universe contingent on external factors, or is it self-sustaining? And what natural laws govern the order and dynamics of the cosmos. Cosmology seeks to explain the large-scale structure and behavior of the universe using natural principles without invoking supernatural causes. Next, we'll cover the concepts of identity and change. Identity is the property that makes an entity the same over time. Change is the process by which an entity's properties evolve. A classic example of this is the ship of Theseus, a very interesting thought experiment asking whether an object that has had all its parts replaced remains fundamentally the same object or becomes a different one. This example demonstrates that identity is a continuous, dynamic process resulting from ongoing natural changes. So at this point, I'm sure you're asking, how do we know what we know, Taco? That's a great question. So epistemology is the answer. Epistemology is the study of the nature, scope, and limits of knowledge. It addresses questions such as what is knowledge, how is knowledge acquired, and what distinguishes justified belief from mere opinion. The focus of epistemology is to establish that knowledge is derived from evidence, logical reasoning, and observation rather than from untestable or supernatural sources. This field underpins all rational inquiry and critical thinking. So what can we know exactly? Well, there's three major approaches to understanding what we can know. There's rationalism, which suggests that knowledge is primarily derived from logical reasoning and innate ideas. So an example of this is like mathematical truths such as 2 plus 2 equals 4, which are deduced through reasoning. There's empiricism, which posits that knowledge comes from sensory experience. An example of this would be that we know water is wet because we observe and experience its properties. And then skepticism, which recognizes that absolute certainty is difficult to achieve. Thus, our knowledge is always tentative and subject to revision. An example of this would be how scientific theories are continually refined in light of new evidence. The takeaway here is that our knowledge is built on both our cognitive abilities and sensory experiences. How do we justify beliefs? Well, justification is the process of providing support or reasons for our beliefs. Three key theories explain how this is done. There's foundationalism, which says that certain self-evident beliefs serve as the foundation for all other knowledge. So, for example, the immediate awareness of one's own consciousness is considered self-evident. There's coherentism, which says that beliefs are justified when they form a consistent, interconnected system that supports each other. So, for example, consider a detective at a crime scene assembling the clues that, when integrated, they form a coherent narrative explaining a crime. And then finally, there's reliabilism, which says that beliefs are justified if they are produced by processes that reliably yield true outcomes. An example of this would be consistent and accurate sensory perceptions of our environment. In total, justification is achieved through evidence and logical coherence rather than by appeals to non-empirical sources. So how do we distinguish knowledge versus opinion? Well, the justified true belief model is often used to define knowledge. It requires three criteria: truth, that the belief must correspond with reality; belief, the individual must genuinely hold the belief; and finally, justification, there must be sufficient evidence supporting the belief. So, for example, the heliocentric model of the solar system is accepted as knowledge because it is true, widely held, and well supported by evidence. However, challenges such as the Gettier problem show that even justified true beliefs can sometimes be accidentally true, indicating that our understanding of knowledge is always evolving. I'm sure that this is what you have all been waiting for. A critique of Christian presuppositional apologetics. This slide is going to examine common tactics used in Christian presuppositional apologetics and give you some tools to respond to them with. So the first one is a conflation of epistemology and ontology. The claim is generally something along the lines of logic, math, and intelligibility require a divine foundation. So this argument conflates epistemology, which is how we know and justify our beliefs, and ontology, which is what exists in reality. This is a category error. The issue is requiring a supernatural basis for knowledge improperly merges the process of justification with the nature of existence. There's also circular reasoning. So, for example, the Bible is true because God says so. God exists because the Bible says so. In a format you might have heard before, the Bible is true because we've received revelation, and we know the revelation is true because God exists. The argument is circular because it assumes its conclusion in its premises. For them to receive revelation, a God has to exist in their view. It's just saying that God exists because God exists. And finally, probably the most intellectually damning of these three is the impossibility of the contrary claim. They claim that no alternative worldview can account for rational thought. The issue is that this dismisses all other epistemological approaches without critical examination. For them to truly claim impossibility of the contrary, they would have to examine all other possible worldviews and discount them. But they're not doing that. In summary, these tactics simply divert from evidence-based reasoning and weaken their argument by relying on unexamined assumptions. The problem is that most people don't actually understand what's happening and don't know how to appropriately respond to these issues. I sincerely hope that you have found some value in everything that we've covered today. I'm going to conclude this by reviewing the key terms we've discussed and going over the final takeaway. So metaphysics is simply speculation about the fundamental nature of reality that goes beyond what scientific investigation can currently confirm. Ontology is a subfield of metaphysics that explores what exists, or, well, being. Epistemology is the study of the nature, sources, and justification of knowledge. Abstract concepts are ideas or general properties used to describe qualities that are not tied to specific physical objects. Truth is the quality of a proposition that accurately reflects a state of affairs. Various theories exist, including correspondence, coherence, and pragmatic theories. Identity is the continuous, dynamic process by which an entity remains the same over time. And finally, the biggest takeaway here should be a robust understanding of reality is achieved through empirical evidence, logical reasoning, and systematic inquiry. My mission for you is to embrace critical thinking and continuous inquiry in the pursuit of truth. These definitions provide a framework for understanding the universe that is both rigorous and open to refinement. Once again, my YouTube is Real Breakfast Tacos. You can find me at youtube.com/@realbreakfasttacos or on discord.gg/politics. If you got any value out of this, make sure to come say hi to me. Thank you for watching.
Get wrecked, nerd. Got fucking dominated, dude.